Today we will discuss about the subclavian artery. Here I already removed the medial 2/3 part of the clavicle as well as removed the skin, superficial fascia along with the platysma, and this is the sternocleidomastoid muscles. I will reflect this part. Here you can see this is the internal jugular vein, and this is the right side of the root of the neck. Here you can see this is the brachiocephalic artery which divide into the two terminal branches. This is the right subclavian and this is the right common carotid artery. On the left side, the subclavian artery which is emerging from the arch of aorta. The subclavian artery which divide into the three part by the one muscles. It is called the scalenus anterior muscles. This is the scalenus anterior muscles. Proximal to it, this portion of the subclavian artery, it is called the first part of the subclavian artery. Behind to the scalenus anterior, it is called the second part of the subclavian artery, and up to the outer border of the first rib. Here you can see this is the outer border of the first rib. Up to here, it is called the third part of the subclavian artery. Now, first part of the subclavian artery, which is anteriorly, it is related with the, here you can see, it is related with the skin, superficial fascia, sternocleidomastoid, as well as sternohyoid and sternothyroid muscles. These are the sternohyoid and sternothyroid muscles. Also, there is a presence of the internal jugular veins. Cervical, this is the vagus nerve. This is the recurrent ansa subclavia. This is the ansa subclavia. Presence of the phrenic nerve also crosses from lateral to medial side over the scalenus anterior muscles. The posteriorly, the subclavian artery which is related with the inferior cervical ganglion. This is the inferior cervical ganglion, and on the lower aspect it is related with the first thoracic ganglion, or it is called the stellate ganglion, as well as there is a longus coli on the medial posteromedial aspect. There is a longus coli. Now we will discuss about the branches of the subclavian artery. The first branch, this is the which is goes upwards. It is the thyrocervical trunk, and it emerging, it gives the three branches. This is the inferior thyroid artery which supplies goes upwards along with the recurrent laryngeal nerve, and the another, it is the superficial transverse cervical superficial cervical or transverse cervical artery. This is the transverse cervical artery. It is goes inside the posterior triangle of the neck in front of the trapezius muscles. Third artery, here you can see it is the suprascapular artery. This suprascapular artery which is goes inside the along with the suprascapular nerve. This is the suprascapular nerve, and this suprascapular nerve which is emerging inside the suprascapular fossa. Here you can see this is a suprascapular fossa. Here you can see this portion, and this suprascapular nerve, as well as this is the suprascapular artery which is passes artery which is vessels which is passes above to the foramen, and while the nerve which is passes inside the foramen. So this is the first branch. It is the thyrocervical. Basically it gives the three branches. One is the inferior thyroid, superficial transverse cervical, and the third one, it is the suprascapular artery. The other branches of the first part, it is on the deep aspect. Here you can see this artery which is goes on the deep side. This deep artery, it is called the vertebral artery. This vertebral artery have a enter inside the foramen transversum of the cervical vertebra, and it is through the foramen magnum it enter inside the brain, and it supplies to the it makes the two vertebral right and left vertebral artery makes the basilar artery. So this is the another branch of the first part of the subclavian artery. It is the vertebral artery. Third part, it gives the artery which goes inside the thorax. Here you can see this is the internal thoracic artery, which lies between the pleural membrane and inside the internal intercostal muscles. So this is the third branch of the first part of the subclavian artery. Second part, it gives the branches. It is the costocervical trunk, and this costocervical trunk, here it is the separate branch. This is the deep cervical artery, and this is the superior superior intercostal artery, which gives the two posterior intercostal artery. This is the costocervical trunk, normally which is emerging into the second part, and third part it emerging, there is a one artery, it is the third part, it emerging the artery, it is called the dorsal scapular artery. Here you can see this artery which goes on the posteriorly, it is called the dorsal scapular artery. So these are the branches of the subclavian artery. Basically you have to remember, in short, it is divided by the three part by the scalenus anterior muscles. Proximal to it up to the division, on the right side it is a branch of brachiocephalic, and left side it is a branch of arch of aorta. So it is a first part behind to the muscle, second part, and distal to it up to the outer border it is the third part of the subclavian artery. After that it becomes continuous as a axillary artery inside the axilla. So this is about to the subclavian artery. Hope you enjoy the lecture. Thank you very much. Third part of the axillary artery, which is related with the anteriorly, it is related with these muscles of the neck, mainly the sternocleidomastoid as well as external jugular vein, and now to subclavius as well as subclavian vein, which is related anteriorly. The posteriorly, it is related with the brachial plexus. Here you can see this is a trunk of the brachial plexus, and inferiorly it is related with the first rib. These are the, and superiorly it is related with the upper and middle trunk of the brachial plexus, and posterior also it is related with the lower trunk. So this is about to the relations of the third part of the subclavian artery. I will tell you the subclavian steel syndrome. If there is a blockage of this right side of the subclavian artery proximal to the emerging of the this vertebral artery, what happens if there is a blockage is here, then the opposite side of the vertebral artery, the blood goes upside inside the neck through the brain, and it is united with the opposite side of the vertebral artery, and this right side of the vertebral artery which receives the blood, and it passes to the distal to the blockage of the subclavian artery. It is called the subclavian steel syndrome. So whenever there is a blockage of the subclavian artery proximal to the vertebral artery, at that time the blood of the opposite side of the vertebral artery, which united at the base of the brain with the opposite side of the vertebral artery, and the opposite side of the vertebral artery towards the same side of the blockage, it receives the blood and it supplies to the distal part of the subclavian artery. It is called the subclavian steel syndromes.